Welcome into the show and welcome back to the Breakdown Report. My name is Tavon Best, and we got something here for you today. It is talking about everything about the Eastern Conference trades and the fallout from the trade deadline that happened. Now, you guys know that the 2026 NBA trade deadline closed on February 5th. And while the Western Conference delivered some headline chaos, the Eastern Conference told a completely different story. This wasn't a superstar frenzy. It was more of a cap management deadline, a trade player exception deadline, and an apron awareness deadline, to say the least. And some teams pushed in, some pivoted, some tore it down, and then some did absolutely nothing. But in the may matter the most, if anything. Let's go by team and discuss everything that's going on in the NBA Eastern Conference in the time being. Again, this is 2 weeks prior from the video. If you like this video and you like this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also like the video if you like the content. We'll go straight into it and going first into things, ladies and gentlemen. Is the NBA trade deadline, is the first trade, is the Atlanta Hawks. We got to include the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards with Trae Young. In the era that they are finding as they end the Trae Young era for the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta traded Trae Young to the Washington Wizards in return for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. The cap and trade mechanics as goes. Trae Young had a 15% trade bonus for his trade. The bonus was reduced, allowing the salary matching. That's how the trade was able to correspond. Atlanta created $1.36 million in trade player exception, which they can use in the free agency or for another trade. Now that the trade deadline's over, they cannot, so it's going to be for free agency. And Washington absorbed Trae Young using expanded TPE or player exception flexibility. This wasn't a talent upgrade by no less, and we discussed this in the video from prior before. If you guys missed that video, please check it out. It is my Trae Young video, which is right here. And Trae Young trade makes sense. You can always check that out from that point on. But again, this wasn't a talent upgrade. This was a structured shift. Instead of one player being supermaxed and a guard dominating the cap sheet, the Atlanta now holds one large but shorter-term veteran deal in CJ McCollum, which is a one-year deal, and one mid-tier shooting contract, which is Corey Kispert. This allows them to move flexible around the free agency time and also gives them long-term flexibility and resets that timing, and also focus on the new reign of players that's out there, such as Jalen Johnson, Onyeka Okongwu, and a couple of other players as well, to help out and build out their franchise. Atlanta is no longer building around heliocentric offense or the high PNR offense. They are shifting towards cap maneuverability and option for future trades, and also to develop their younger guys and put more focus on the younger guys that's out there. This signals a multi-year reset for Atlanta, and also a delayed superstar hunt in which they believe that Jalen Johnson is their next superstar. For Washington, they acquired Trae Young. They took on the max salary. They accepted luxury risk, and they declared that they are done rebuilding passively. Washington also acquired in these trades as well, which we're going to talk about later, Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, Dante Exum, and Jaden Hardy, and they move on from Chris Middleton, which is a $33 million contract, Marvin Bagley, and picks and depth throughout this thing. And also we're going to talk about, as I said, the Anthony Davis trade. Anthony Davis was moved in this process and was traded to the Washington Wizards in a deal in which that included, as I said, Chris Middleton, Marvin Bagley, picks and depth. I think they gave up 2 first-round picks for Anthony Davis. Mavericks created a 20.8 player exception for Davis. That means the Mavericks can now either use that money for free agency when it comes to the first day of free agency before moratorium period, but also if they wanted to, they can use it for few later trades down the line or hold it on and absorb the cap from that point on. Washington absorbed salary through expanded exceptions, so they was able to use exceptions from before, and Washington was able to deal them off to Dallas. And then Middleton departure gives them a little bit of breathing room for Washington to now use that money and use those trades in a very aggressive pairing with Trae Young and Anthony Davis. This was aggressive, risk heavy, and expensive, but either which way, this young roster from the Washington Wizards with Alexander Starr, Bilal Coulibaly, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, you name it, they have so much young talent. And then pairing it off with now 2 dominant stars during their time with their respective teams, Davis with the Lakers and also with the Pelicans from before, and now with Dallas. Even though he was injury riddled with Dallas, he is still getting, or possibly will be paid, some big money coming into the offseason, in which Washington will take that threat or take that risk of him potentially being more healthier coming onto his team, and also with Trae Young being more healthier and signing with the extension. Washington now has a full pace and on-track focus of potentially being one of the best fives in the Eastern Conference coming by next year, has everybody will be resting up. Trae Young said that he will not be playing for this regular season, and Anthony Davis said that he will not be playing for this regular season. So it gives Washington not only more time to develop their young players, but also get a couple or possibly a lottery pick coming into this offseason, and will be going on as well. We'll see how it'll manage as it goes down later down the line, and we'll see how the draft will go. And again, we are going through all those videos as we are going to bring up some very fantastic draft analysis on the Washington Wizards. But as said, ladies and gentlemen, this, I feel, was a good trade for the Washington Wizards, and which they will see if it benefit or not, depending on Anthony Davis injury history and Trae Young injury history as well. They're no longer asset hoarding no more. They are chasing competitiveness, to say for sure. Now for the Boston Celtics, we got to talk about them as well, because they have managed to get away from the apron as much time as possible. Boston adds size without shaking their core. They get Nikola Vucevic in this trade, in which they only traded away in a few minor trades as well. They only traded away a few people in this trade. So Boston, they send away Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons was a really good bench player for this Boston team, especially who was traded in release of Drew Holiday on that trade. So getting away with Drew Holiday, bringing in now Nikola Vucevic, who they needed a center for a long time, to say the least. They did not have a center. They let go of Kristaps Porzingis during the offseason. They get now a bona fide all-star center in Nikola Vucevic. He may not be as defensive as KP in that paint, or he may not be more defensive as Queta inside the paint, but he will be rebounding, he will be scoring from the low post, and he can stretch out and shoot. That gives Boston plenty of options to score, especially with Jaylen Brown and also Jason Tatum potentially coming back this season. We don't know specifically if he is going to fully make a recovery back into the season prior to his last injury during the playoffs. However, it does look like this Boston team is still in the top 3, if not top 4 of the Eastern Conference standings, and could potentially make a good playoff push, if anything. Obviously, they need Jason Tatum to make it very big into the finals, but who cannot say that this Boston team cannot make it to the Eastern Conference Finals with Nikola Vucevic added on to this team? Now, with Boston acquiring Vucevic from Chicago, they use a pre-existing team player exception to absorb the contract. They created a new exception with $27.6 million with Vucevic being gone. And then they sent Anthony Simons and a second-round pick. They didn't have to touch a first-round pick whatsoever. Why does this matter? Boston did not touch the all-star wings, which they didn't have to give up. They did not have to mortgage a future first, and they enter apron danger, or they basically escape apron danger with those moves. And again, they made further moves to get away from that. They also let go Xavier Tillman to Charlotte for and cash consideration to let them get out of that second apron, or very close to getting out that second apron as of right now. They improved depth-wise, they preserved flexibility, and they stay contender basis as of right now. This was a surgical move by Boston. Now for Chicago, they have committed to the reset mode completely. Anderson Karasinov has completely traded away most of his assets that he has acquired to basically build this Eastern Conference team from the ground up. They have traded away Zach LaVine, traded away DeMar DeRozan, traded away Kobe White, traded away Nikola Vucevic, Ayo Dosunmu, Dalen Terry, everybody that was in that regime, Alex Caruso even. And even from a standpoint, they traded away a bunch of young players and players that had this Bulls team make it to the play-ins and make it to the playoffs at one point. Lonzo Ball even. They traded them away and now are left with a bunch of guards. You can call them guards, Mark, but as of right now, all they have from the trade and from all those moves is Rob Dillingham, which I feel is a very promising player. Jaden Ivey, who is also a really promising player as well. Leonard Miller, who is a really good forward, prospect forward. Anthony Simons, who I feel as though just needs a home and somebody to believe in him to basically go into that starting lineup, and a bunch of picks, second-round picks from that standpoint. They also got Colin Sexton from the Charlotte Hornets. This creates a cap exception of 2.2 and player exception, which they can use later on. Leverage expanded TPE to absorb youth for their team, so they use player exceptions to get youthful players on their team, and prioritize second-round acumen, so they're going to be fishing and hunting for second-round picks coming along. Maybe trade some of those second-round picks, multiple second-round picks, for a first-round pick later on in the first round, where coming for this draft or later drafts coming along. This is not a retool. This is asset stacking at its finest for Chicago. Chicago is officially timeline shifting and making sure they are prioritizing development draft capital over chasing the 8th seed and the play-in as of right now. And ladies and gentlemen, Kurjanov says the best. We feel as though we're stuck in limbo. We feel as though that this team will not be able to make it into the playoffs, but also not be able to win a championship. So they made a reset for a couple of years to make sure and ensure that this team at least can have some future into it coming in to the future. As I said, Kurjanov I feel like did the right thing, but could have maybe got some first round picks from it. Who knows who will go from that. Let me know in the comment section how you guys feel about it, Chicago Bulls fans, that it's out there. Now for the Charlotte Hornets. Let's move on to them. Charlotte, they were aggressive but controlled in the sense. They got Kobe White. They got a couple of players as well. And one of the players that I had to spotlight for sure into the lineups and into everything as well, Kobe White was a big player that I felt was a huge thing. And coming into the lineup as well, he was going to improve this team night and day and do what he needs to do to help out this team as much as possible. Now, with Kobe White, as I said, I feel as though that he is going to help this team in the six-man role. He is going to make this team better. He's a native from North Carolina. He does what he needs to do at a very high and consistent basis. And I feel as though that he is going to put foot to belt to make sure that this team is in a playoff spot by 10. Right now, the Charlotte Hornets are currently in that 9th seed and looking for more to potentially get to that Eastern Conference playoffs, if anything. And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, with them getting Kobe White, they also get Mike Conley and Micah Branham in the deal, and Tyus Jones. They used those trade exceptions to absorb cap room and absorb contracts. They did not surrender a first-round pick at all during these deals and then take on a long-term deal whatsoever. Charlotte was mostly not only a buyer in this situation, but also a facilitator in a sense to basically absorb and get more cap space. And not only that, get second-round picks as far as assets. Right now, Charlotte has 12 future second-round picks and I believe 17 picks in the future and coming into the next couple of years for this time being. So again, they're one of the highest asset teams that's out there besides from Brooklyn, besides from OKC, and besides from a couple other players that's out there. Charlotte believes they are very close to playoff relevancy, and this shows right here. They had, I believe, a 12-game win streak at one point, or 10-game win streak, that ended up being a loss to Detroit. Now, after the deadline, now getting Kobe White as the six-man role is a huge get because he is averaging 18 points per game, per night, and will be coming off the bench to help out this team. Not to say that Colin Sexton could not do the job, but this is to also say that, hey, you get a better upgrade at that position, especially when LaMelo Ball is completely out of the game. And with the surgeons of Colin Knippel and Brandon Miller, they have been playing tremendously. So again, ladies and gentlemen, they have been doing some fantastic work, to say the least, with this front office. As of right now, Charlotte believes they're in playoff relevancy. This is a step forward towards the deadline. This is not at all an all-in buy. This is not a rebuild. This is a bridge. This is something to get them there and now potentially get them closer to contendership, if anything, or at least be in the playoffs and have some relevancy coming in. Now, with that in mind, we also got to talk about the biggest headline that happened during free agency, which is Giannis did not move at all whatsoever for the Milwaukee Bucks. This was the biggest headline, and it was a bunch of trades and trade talks about Giannis potentially going to this team, potentially going to that team. They're looking to find suitors for him. They're looking to find something for him. And again, all this can be debunked because Chris Haynes officially said it, and said it multiple times, that Giannis did not request for a trade off the Milwaukee Bucks, but the Bucks are working on a trade or looking for suitors for a trade for Giannis if they should split apart. So Milwaukee feeling their best interest, or potentially feeling their best interest as of now, that they would want to possibly move away from Giannis and basically retool and rebuild for the future if they cannot offer Giannis what they want, or at least get him a contender team has right now. Now, with Milwaukee, what they did, they sent away Cole Anthony, who was playing bad this year and is now a free agent currently, and Amir Coffey, and they received Nick Richards and Nigel Hayes-Davis. Nick Richards is a big or solid upgrade at that center spot for a backup center, and they get a minor rotation reshuffle. They also picked up Cam Thomas from the free agency from the buyout market, and also got Osman Dang from a trade as well with Hornets in feature of that Kobe White deal that we just talked about. Now, Osman Dang has been playing really good, and Cam Thomas has been playing really well as well. They preserved a star identity. They avoided chaos completely with the Giannis trade, and they avoid panic and made some minor depth tweaks to their roster. It's nothing significant, but the team either proved to be in the playoffs currently right now in that, I believe, 11 seed in the Eastern Conference, or they're going to face offseason turbulence in which they would have to deal away with Giannis or potentially get a lottery pick in hopes to convince them to stay around. Now, Philadelphia, we got to talk about them. Definitely. Philadelphia made a financial move. They traded away Eric Gordon, traded away Jared McCain to the OKC Thunder, which was a surprising move to say the least for the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, it felt as though, especially with Jared McCain going to the G League, that he was undervalued by the 76ers. And especially with VJ Edgecombe taken away and doing good and playing really well, and Tyrese Maxey playing really well, it seems as though Jared McCain, especially with injuries that happened from last year, they felt like there was a little bit impatience made by Daryl Morey, and they basically gave him away. Not to say that Jared McCain was not playing well for the season, but that injury did affect him, and it did seem as though that he was in and out the lineup for the 76ers. They felt they can move and go another way, and also to preserve cap and get away and avoid that tax that's coming in from the Apron. They made that trade with Jared McCain and traded him to the Thunder in exchange of pretty much a couple of picks. They got a couple of draft swaps, cap relief, and roster conversion flexibility, and they also gave away Eric Gordon to basically save up on some money as well. They avoided the tax. They opened a room for internal development. This was a conservative play. Philly chose stability over making a splash deal or a buyer's market deal to help them improve their roster. And their roster is already good as it is. They're currently sitting right now in that 6th seed for the Eastern Conference spot, and they can still improve as it is. I think right now they're just dealing with a lot of injuries to Joel Embiid currently has it right now, and making sure that their team stay afloat coming into the big stretch, which is the midseason as of right now. Now with the New York Knicks, we got to talk about them. They made a small move, but it was still a major move that I feel that the Knicks made. The Knicks traded away Gershon Yabusele for Dalen Terry from the Chicago Bulls, which they got from a trade later on. And then they later traded away Dalen Terry to the New Orleans Pelicans, in which the Pelicans released Dalen Terry, and they got Jose Alvarado, a New York native, from there. Now, in this deal, the Knicks did not have to give up no first-round picks, and they only had to give up a second-round pick and a couple of players that was on there, and they save up money, and they avoid the cap as much as possible. They send Gershon Yabusele, who has to get rid of his player option, actually, to make the deal work, and send him off to Chicago. And the New York stayed disciplined and stayed to their core. They wanted to continue on with their core players. They felt and believed that their core players was the major thing that was helping them from that standpoint. And that's exactly what they went to. They got Jose Alvarado. He is on a 1-year deal. They kept everybody, did not trade nobody for Giannis, ladies and gentlemen. Giannis is staying put in Milwaukee, but New York is keeping their talent. Right now, they are currently in the top 3 seed of the Eastern Conference, and they're looking to improve more day by day by day. Now for Orlando, we got to talk about them as well. Orlando traded Tyus Jones for cash consideration. They did not do much. And I would think with their team currently has it right now, and they were currently recovering from people getting injured, like Franz Wagner, who is still out indefinitely currently for this for this Magic squad currently, They are purely just focused on financial moves. They did not push in chips. They did not add depth. They didn't make noise. This suggests that they are just going off a long-term patience, and hopefully that Franz Wagner returns and they continue making that push going in. They are still in that 7th spot right now. They can still make it out and go into that playoff territory, potentially be a 4th, 5th seed if they make a major run. Paolo Banchero's play has been a little bit disappointing, but I still feel that this young team still has something left in the tank to help them out, and especially with the experience of Desmond Bane and a couple other players that's out there, they can still be in relevancy of the playoffs. Now, Indiana didn't really make as much moves as much as possible, but they did make a move that will serve them and along the time, and that's Victor Zubac going to the Indiana Pacers from the Clippers. Now, they made this trade only due to the fact of getting some more depth when Tyrese Halliburton comes back. Now, with that depth in mind, remember, they lost Miles Turner to Milwaukee Bucks. They don't have a center like that. They have Jay Huff, who has been playing really good as of lately, but they needed to solidify a true center, and that's what they got in Victor Zubac. He is a person that can rim protect. He can drop on defense. He can score around the rim. He can rebound around the rim, and he also has a really good mid-range and really good post game, something that would be needed for Tyrese Halliburton expertise, as he can make some passings to him and he can make some very good moves into the lane and help him out in terms of the scoring of the offense. And now Indiana has an official post player to play alongside with Pascal Siakam, and Zubac is not a bad passer. Now, what they did have to give up was some youth. They did give up Benedict Mathurin, who was eligible for a contract extension. I'm pretty sure the Pacers did not want to give up that money to Benedict Mathurin, as he was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers, in which they prioritize his youth as much as possible. And they also give up Isaiah Jackson, who is more of a depth piece, if anything, because they have a lot of centers currently as of right now. They now get rid of Isaiah Jackson. They get Victor Zubac into that deal with Pascal Siakam and the rest of that squad, and they still kept their core mostly throughout things. They're going to miss Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench, but as far as the future starting lineup for this Indiana Pacers squad, with Tyrese Halliburton, Aaron Nesmith, and a couple other players going from there, Obi Toppin, who's still, I believe, hurt right now. He's not the starting 3, but, you know, they have so much guys that you can fill in and place into the spot now with Victor Zubac and Pascal Siakam. This is going to be a really good Eastern Conference team coming in to next year, especially if they keep it afloat. And remember, this was a team that made it to the finals against OKC and led them to Game 7. I feel as though this was a major move as a buyer's market to already improve an already contending team in the Eastern Conference when they are fully healthy. Now, the Miami Heat, we got to talk about them. Miami Heat. No major trades whatsoever. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what they were thinking. The silence is strategic according to Pat Riley, but I feel as though they should have been in the buyer's market. They were in a play-in territory as of right now last year. They are currently in the play-in territory as of right now with no major change in the lineup. They traded away Jimmy Butler last year to Golden State and didn't really benefit off the trade as much. As of right now, Tyler Herro's came back. He is playing okay. Bam Adebayo has been playing okay. Norman Powell has been the all-star for this team, has mostly. And they have been relying on a couple of young guys, such as Khalil Ware and Rodney Juventus, I believe that's his name. But he has been playing really good, has a recently as well. And I think this Heat team can compete in the Eastern Conference. Now, do I think they will get far? No. Do I think they will make it a tough out for a first-round team? Yes, because at the end of the day, Eric Spoelstra is the guy that is going to continue and place down his chips on his players and his blue-collar players, and he is a good head coach in this NBA. He's been the longest tenured coach in the NBA as of recently, besides from Steve Kerr and a couple of other people. So, again, Miami Heat's Eric Spoelstra is going to lead this team to the play-in. Can they make it out is the question. And I think the radio silence from the Miami Heat is a major flaw to what they believe they can bring in. They were looking and hunting for Giannis. They could not get him. So, ladies and gentlemen, who knows how Miami is going to react to this. Now, Cleveland, gotta talk about them. Very, very major, big move coming out of Cleveland, to say the least. They get James Harden off of a deal, trading away Darius Garland. They are going all in on the prospect of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell leading the squad and getting this team. They also made some minor deals as well, getting Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder from a deal in which they get pretty much cap flexibility. They get James Harden, who is around the same deal as Darius Garland. He's on a 1-year deal. If Cleveland do not feel as though they want to pay James Harden, they don't have to necessarily pay him whatsoever, and they will play him out for the time being with Donovan Mitchell in hopes they can win a championship or make a contention at a championship. This was a buyer's type of deal. It was high risk, to say the least, but they made a deal nonetheless with James Harden out there. And he's been playing really good with this team so far, it seems, as it times goes along. Now, with everything that's going along with the Cleveland Cavaliers, they still do have the opportunity to play and get people and make some very good impacts with this team as of right now, with the Cleveland Cavaliers playing against some really good Eastern Conference foes. They are currently 5th or 4th in the Eastern Conference. I feel as though with James Harden, especially their winning streak currently has it right now before the All-Star break and now coming into the All-Star break, coming tomorrow where they play their final games, I feel as though Cleveland is going to make a big shift and potentially get to that 3rd seed of the Eastern Conference, especially with their new and improved enhancements. Also, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that Evan Mobley is currently still out of the lineup and will be making his return very soon, probably in the next 2 weeks or 1 week from this. So again, Cleveland has a really good team coming up and coming forward. And you also got to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder are some really good players. This Keon Ellis had marketability. DeAndre Hunter pretty much had a low contract at one point, or pretty much a high contract, and was not living up to his contract. So they traded him away to Sacramento in terms of that deal. And now with that deal, in turn of that, Cleveland is looking to continue. This was a strategic move by Cleveland, but a very risky one, to say the least. And we'll see how it goes from that standpoint. And again, they create a lot of money still. They still have James Harden on a 1-year deal. Hopefully, with James Harden, they're going to give him an extension, because that was the main reason why he got traded from the Clippers, ladies and gentlemen, with Darius Garland going to the Clippers. They let go of that youth, and they want James Harden long-term in terms of basically saving the money. That's what James Harden is longing, and that's what he wants. That's what he is more than likely going to get. And hopefully they can continue out with Donovan Mitchell now at the age of 30, and James Harden at the age of 36 can make a big push into the NBA playoffs and lead this team into victory. And they got depth now, so there's no excuse for this Cleveland Cavaliers team coming in. Now, with the Detroit Pistons, we got to talk about them. Now, Detroit, in the matter, they didn't make really much of a deal or much of things that's happening. They had Dario Saric. They let him go. They signed to Jenkins for a little bit of a deal as far as a 2-way deal, who was already on the team. But they didn't really make major moves. The only thing they did was get rid of Jaden Ivey, in which Jaden Ivey wasn't really a player that they really had high hopes for. They did have high hopes to play alongside with Cade Cunningham, to say the least. But ladies and gentlemen, Cade Cunningham has been playing really good. They have a lineup already with him. They already figured out their rotation. So Jaden Ivey, who has been getting injured constantly and did not really play to the much of effect for the Detroit Pistons, he is now gone from the team, and he is gone to the Chicago Bulls, in which he will start off fresh. And he's still young, 23 years old, if anything. So it's still a fresh start. But Detroit did pick up on a few players, or did keep some in-house keeping and let go of some cap flexibility in terms of their deals, and save up some money for later on, especially if they wanted to attack the buyout market as of right now. Obviously, they was going against and trying to get players such as Miles Bridges, such as Rui Hachimura, such as Tobias Harris that's out there, but they did not get any deals whatsoever. So in that sense, since they didn't get any deals from that era, from that time, they will just settle from what they are. Right now, they are currently number 1 in the Eastern Conference, so they don't need to currently to make a big push or be in the buyer's market to make a contending market, if anything. But they are right now in the best team in the Eastern Conference as of right now, and they're looking like the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference. So again, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see if this Detroit Pistons team can continue. Now, for the Toronto Raptors, ladies and gentlemen, Toronto did not really do anything. Again, Another team that's basically stood pat in the buyer's market, and they're currently in the 4th, 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, along with the Celtics, along with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and along with the New York Knicks of the world. They are currently in that tier. Last year, they was outside the playoffs, right? Now they are inside the playoffs, and you think that they will make a major move. They did not. The only thing they got was Tracy Ellis Davis, or Jackson, I believe, from the Golden State Warriors, in which they improved their depth, and they traded for Chris Paul, in which they waived to basically free up some financial things for themselves. So again, they're looking towards long-term direction, if anything, from this Toronto team. So again, they didn't make any deals, but it looks like they are going to be in really good standings, if anything, when come time for the Eastern Conference. And they are relying on their youth, Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, and a couple of other players, especially as well, Scotty Barnes as well, who made All-Star team. Emmanuel Quickly has been playing really good, and RJ Barrett, to rely on them and win some games, especially for their tough defensive team that's going on right now into the Eastern Conference and hopefully into the playoffs. So again, that is all the trades from the Eastern Conference. Now to talk about the buyout market. Got to discuss about that. From the buyout market, from things, Lonzo Ball getting traded from Cleveland Cavaliers, going to the Utah Jazz. He got bought out. D'Angelo Russell did not get bought out yet. Will soon get bought out from, it seems as though, from the Washington Wizards. May stay with the Washington Wizards. Who knows? Matisse Thybulle was released from the Trailblazers, was bought out. Kevin Love, potentially a buyout candidate for Utah, as they did not make a move from him. Chris Middleton, potentially a buyout market from Dallas. They still have him under wraps. Xavier Tillman was bought out did not get bought out from the Hornets. He will stay on the Charlotte Hornets, as he has former teammates with Miles Bridges in Michigan State, and Charles Lee wants him there. Nicholas Batum did not get traded, or did not get bought out from the LA Clippers. Clippers decided not to do anything. This is an important rule as well. Second apron teams cannot sign players who's making above the mid-level exception. This matters. This means Boston, Miami, Milwaukee must monitor their apron positioning. The buyout market could shift playoff rotation. One player that was bought out and was going to a team was the New York Knicks getting Jeremy Strochan, who was bought out from the San Antonio Spurs, ladies and gentlemen. San Antonio decided to buy him out, as they did not have any rotation for him in that lineup, and they bought him out. The New York Knicks picked him up and scooped him up easily. Now, if I had to say the winners and losers of the trade deadline, it was definitely Washington. I feel Washington was very aggressive in their reset and their retooling of their roster. They still keep their younger players and still have younger youth on their team, but they added in some veteran stars to help them out, and also added in a bunch of people to help them out in this situation. So again, they are going to be a really good team, to say the least, and I cannot wait to see how they're going to continue on with their roster and their youth movement that's on there, and see if Trae Young can help out this younger team, can see if Anthony Davis can help out this younger team and rebound for this younger team, and also develop Alexander Starr being there. Next on the list is Boston. They get Nikola Vucevic, ladies and gentlemen. Nikola Vucevic was a huge part of this trade, and I feel like Boston also secured some cap flexibility as well, but also securing a all-star center in the process, and only getting rid of Anthony Simons, who I feel you now bring Peyton Pritchard off the bench, and now you help out your offense as much as possible with now Derek White basically playing that role. You still got Sam Hauser. You still got a bunch of players that you can use and flex in while Jason Tatum was gone. So again, smart trade by Boston, and didn't have to give up a first-round pick whatsoever. Charlotte stayed in the buyer's market, but also did not give up any first-round pick and still save money and got some more assets. I think that's a win-win that checks off the list any day, that you can get a really good player in Kobe White and save money and have an extension to him, which you can use, and he's only 26. Not only that, you save up on assets, you didn't have to give up a first-round pick, and you still continue to lead your youthful charge as it is. Chicago, I feel, is the loser of this deal for sure. Chicago staying put. They got guard Mart has it right now, and they got to figure out a way to trade all those players. But not only that, throughout all those players that has been traded, they did not get a single first-round pick from that, and I feel as though it's been bad on the term of Kirsanov. He needs to figure out a way to build more youthful players. Now, the best thing about it, they got Josh Giddey, and they have a couple of young players that still is out there, and he can still evaluate and see if they fit alongside with Josh Giddey in this matter. But as of right now, they're in need of forwards and centers to build off their roster currently as of right now. Now, the teams that are stuck in the middle ground is obviously Miami. They didn't add any upside. And the team that needs a push and has stayed quiet, like Orlando, I feel as though they didn't make an upside pick as well. Toronto, same thing, I feel like was a loser. Now, for my final takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, and it's just simple to say the least, the Eastern Conference did not explode. It evolved. The real impact of the deadline was cap layering, optionality, trade exception leverage, buyout positioning, and this was mostly a chess match in the Eastern Conference. They didn't make really serious and major deals that will affect today. They will affect tomorrow, especially with that Washington Wizards trade and the Charlotte Hornets trade that happened as well. And then also the Atlanta Hawks also trading away KP to Golden State in a month of a deal in which they get rid of the star era and now go towards the retooling era, if anything, for the Atlanta Hawks. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this was not chess. This was chess. This was not a big thing for a lot of teams, but for those teams that calculated and looking for that future push, that's what they did. The playoffs will reveal who made that calculated risk and made it correctly, especially Cleveland. We got to talk about them as well. And the offseason, where it may be the true consequences, will show forward from that point of view. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the video. We do appreciate every single body that tuned into the show and tuned into everything. This is the Breakdown Report. If you want more videos like this, make sure you subscribe. We are having pretty much another show coming along today, which will be the Western Conference edition of this show. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stay tuned for that, and make sure that you follow onto the channel and subscribe to the channel as always. I am your host, Tavon Best. We are out of here. Peace out, everybody.